Awele woke up to realize that Chamaka left some dirty dishes in the kitchen, which had attracted some cockroaches. Enraged at the sight of this, Awele forced Chamaka to eat the cockroaches, and Chamaka, unable to revolt, ate them one after the other as Awele stood there and watched. Once upon a time, there lived a very wicked woman named Awele who maltreated all the maids that ever lived with her. Awele had a heart of stone, and her maids were so terrified of her and dared not to talk when she was talking or even look her in the eyes as she spoke. Awele was such a terrifying boss to her maids who lived with her for short periods of time because of how wicked she was. Almost every month, Awele went in search of a new maid as none of the girls were willing to endure her wicked acts. One day, a girl named Neka was sent to live with Awele. This was after Awele had dealt terribly with her previous maid who almost died of starvation. Neka was from a very poor family and needed the job of the maid to cater for her family who relied on her for their every need. Due to this reason, Neka endured all the ill treatments that Awele meted out on her in her home. One hot afternoon, Neka returned home from the well with a heavy pot of water on her head. The pot was extremely heavy that she struggled to hold it up, causing her to accidentally spill some water on Awele's favorite rug. Awele, on realizing what had happened, punished Neka to stand outside her house in the scorching sun without food or water as punishment for her clumsiness. Neka stood under the scorching sun as she regretted ever agreeing to work for Awele, who made her life a living hell. Every day was a different nightmare for Neka, who only ate sour food and slept for less than 3 hours every single day. Even when Neka was sick, Awele had no sympathy for her as she ensured that Neka had no time to rest. In her sick state, Neka engaged in strenuous chores as Awele ensured that she scrubbed the floor, washed all the dirty clothes, and even fetched heavy barrels of water. Despite being extremely sick, Neka endured all that Awele ever did to her, hoping to save up enough money to help her family who were languishing in poverty. However, her expectations were cut short when Awele woke up one morning and accused her of stealing her money. Awele claimed that the money in her purse was stolen, so she decided to search Neka's bag and found some money which was wrapped and hidden carefully inside the bag. Awele took the money from Neka's bag, accusing her of being a thief. Neka could not believe her ears as she tried to convince Awele that the money was hers, but nothing she did worked as Awele chased her away from her house, warning her never to return. Neka returned to her family empty-handed as Awele took all that she ever labored for. With Neka gone, Awele began to look for another maid. No one in their village was willing to work for her because of all the horrible things they had heard about her. So, Awele journeyed to a village where no one knew her to find a maid and was directed to a poor old widow who lived alone with her daughter named Chamaka. Awele promised to take good care of Chamaka as that was the only reason the poor widow released her daughter to her as a maid. However, when Chamaka arrived at Awele's home, she was confronted with the harsh reality of who her madam truly was. Awele briefed Chamaka on all the things that she had to do, saying that on no condition should Chamaka ever be seen loitering around the house jobless. She told Chamaka that she must be up by 4 a.m. every day and must not go to sleep before 2 in the morning. What this meant was that Chamaka had less than 2 hours to sleep daily, as the remaining 22 hours were spent working for her madam. One morning, Awele woke up to realize that Chamaka left some dirty dishes in the kitchen, which had attracted some cockroaches. Enraged at the sight of this, Awele forced Chiamaka to eat the cockroaches, and Chiamaka, unable to revolt, ate them one after the other as Awele stood there and watched. This was the most horrific thing Chiamaka has had to do in her life. So the next night, whilst Awele was fast asleep, Chiamaka packed her bags and ran away for her dear life. Awele woke up the next morning to realize that Chiamaka had packed her bags and gone. This frustrated her greatly as she pondered on how she was going to secure another maid. That afternoon, whilst Awele was heading to the neighboring village, she came across a poor beggar who approached her to beg for some money. Awele picked an interest in the poor beggar and asked about her family, and the poor beggar revealed to Awele that she was an orphan who lost her parents so many years ago, and Awele in that instant offered her the job of her maid, promising to provide her needs. The desperate beggar, filled with excitement, agreed to become Awele's maid. They both returned to Awele's home, and the poor beggar, without knowing it, stepped on Awele's rug with her dirty legs. Awele, enraged at the sight, raised up her hands to slap her, when suddenly the poor beggar transformed into a terrifying looking mermaid. Awele trembled at the sight of the mermaid as she almost pissed on herself. She screamed out in extreme fear as she pondered on what to do. Awele could not believe her eyes. The mermaid, whose voice was so terrifying, ordered Awele to prepare a delicious meal for her, and Awele, without hesitation, rushed off to the kitchen to prepare the meal. Awele could not believe what was happening as she began to regret why she invited the complete stranger into her home. Awele watched in silence as the mermaid commanded her to clean the entire house every day, just as she had made her maids to do. Awele, now in the position of a maid, scrubbed the floors, washed the clothes, and fetched water from the well. The mermaid watched her closely, ensuring that Awele worked tirelessly without rest. One afternoon, the mermaid ordered Awele to stand outside in the scorching sun without food or water, just as she had done to Neka. Awele, feeling the unbearable heat, regretted all the time she had punished her maids in this way. She stood there, exhausted and dehydrated, but the mermaid showed no mercy. The mermaid served Awele rotten food, filled with maggots, forcing her to eat it despite the foul smell and horrendous taste. Awele gagged and cried, remembering how she had made her maids eat sour food filled with cockroaches. The mermaid's eyes glowed with satisfaction as Awele choked down the disgusting meal. Awele lived through the terrifying experiences she subjected her maids to in the past, but what was more terrifying was the fact that Awele could not escape, as the mermaid was always aware of her plans before she even executed them. One early morning, Awele tried to sneak out of her house. She crawled through the quiet house, careful not to make a sound. She reached the door and slowly opened it, hoping to slip away unnoticed. As soon as she stepped outside, the ground beneath her feet turned into a sticky mud that held her fast to the ground. No matter how hard Awele struggled to move, she couldn't, as the mud held her on the spot till the mermaid approached her and took her back into the house. Awele was so petrified as she approached the mermaid and pleaded for mercy. She told the mermaid that she had learnt her lesson and was willing to change from her evil ways, and the mermaid looked at her and laughed, saying that she would only leave Awele's home after accomplishing that which she came to do. Awele was so confused at her statement as she wondered what the mermaid was talking about. Days passed and Awele continued to serve the mermaid diligently without any complaints. She experienced firsthand the suffering that she had inflicted on her past maids. Each scenario was a harsh reminder of her past cruelty, and gradually Awele's heart softened as she began to understand the true value of kindness and empathy. The mermaid, on seeing that Awele had truly changed, lifted the enchantment and released Awele from her hold, warning her to change her ways or face a fate far worse than this. Awele, now humbled and changed, vowed to treat everyone with kindness and respect. She went in search of her former maids to apologize for how terribly she treated them, and even offered Neka her money, which she cunningly took from her, and apologized for ever calling her a thief. Neka was so shocked to see Awele transformed into a kind and considerate woman. She forgave Awele, and Awele returned to her home happy, as she decided never to treat anyone in such a condescending way again. The lesson to be learned from this story is that kindness is not just a virtue, but a necessity for a just and harmonious life. Always treat people the way you would like to be treated, as only then would we have a happy world. Your mates are humans too, with blood running through their veins. They deserve to be treated with dignity and respect, regardless of the fact that they are maids. Treat them kindly and be more understanding, as we are all humans first before anything else. I hope you enjoyed the story.
Like, subscribe, and leave a comment. It helps us grow our channel. I'll see you in our next story. Bye.